father and son. They both served in the military. So what branches did y'all serve in?
I was in the Air Force.
Air Force.
I was in the Army.
Army. So before you served in the military, where were you guys born? Tell me a bit. I know it's going to be different, but.
Well, I was born in a little town up in northeast Kansas called Muskota.
Oh, okay. And tell me a bit about that town. Did you grow up there, or did you move
Well,
somewhere
until I
else?
went into the service, I was there.
Really?
I went to junior college and a little college there.
Did you?
Yeah.
What were you majoring in?
Football.
Football. So
You got a teaching certificate along the way.
Well, yeah.
It's a good thing he was never a
Back
teacher.
then, you could teach school with 2 years of college. It was
Oh,
a 2-year
okay.
college.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't
So you
teach.
played
I went
football?
into the service.
So you played football in
Played
college?
football, basketball, and track. You know,
Did you do that in high school too?
yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about your childhood there, like your family and some of your friends.
Well, we started out on the farm,
A farm?
and my dad got hurt a little bit, so he had to get rid of the farm and move into opened a
Okay.
filling station. Little town, about 350 people.
Oh, yeah, really small.
So
Yeah.
that's where I grew up. And
Uh-huh.
I was 12 when we moved in there.
12. Who was the most influential person to you as a child?
Boy. I don't know. Probably my dad.
Your dad?
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah.
So he was a farmer, you said?
He was a farmer, yeah, and then he had the filling station for
Right.
35 years.
So where were you born?
I was born in Topeka, Kansas.
Topeka, Kansas?
But we lived in Muskota.
Oh, okay.
And when I was 2 years old, he'd been in the Air Force station down in Florida. Well, one of his friends called him and told him he had a job offer for him. So it was in January, so naturally it was colder than, you know what, in Kansas. So he gladly went to Florida, and me and my mom moved down, what, in April?
February.
No,
Yeah, it was April, yeah.
because we didn't move.
Yeah.
So I was 2 years old when we moved to Florida, and I was 55 when I left Florida.
Oh, so what year were you born?
61.
And what year were you born?
33.
33.
So I grew up in Florida,
Uh-huh.
Melbourne. Well, when I grew up there, it was called O'Galley,
Uh-huh.
and the towns went together. And now it's Melbourne, Florida,
Okay.
and
It's there at Cape Canaveral.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We watched all the missiles go up and blow up.
Oh.
everything else that happened.
Okay.
But I was stationed there at the Air Force Base back in the 50s.
Interesting. So your childhood growing up, tell me a bit about your friends, your family then. your neighborhood.
With growing up in Florida, especially with the space program going on,
Right.
my friends, it's like the UN. I had Japanese descendants, Cuban descendants, Eskimos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, three of my best friends, I just gave you their nationalities.
Interesting.
So it was a great place to grow up.
Sounds like it, yeah.
You had we lived about a mile and a half from the beach, and the intercoastal waterway was right there, so you could fish there. You go 3 miles the other way, you had the St. Johns River, alligators, hogs, everything. Growing up, I spent most of my time in the swamp, and I played football and baseball, and took 3 years of OTEC in high school as a mechanic, and I went in to the Army in the Stripes for Skill program. So I went in as an E2, came out of basic in E3, and the way the point system worked for getting promoted, I stayed. I made it to E4, and I kind of stayed there until I got out. I was on
So where did you do basic at?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Fort Jackson.
Then I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, and Baumholder, Germany.
Where did you do basic
Well,
at?
I went into the service and took basic in San Antonio, Texas. And then went to aircraft engine school in Wichita Falls, Texas, and then got shipped to Eglin in northern Florida there at Fort Walton Beach. And I was there for almost 2 years.
Oh, nice.
And then they took our whole squadron to Patrick down at Cape Canaveral, supporting the Beaumont missile.
Right, yeah. Do you guys have any memorable moments or funny stories from basic training?
Not one
Some
that
of
I
you want
should
to
tell.
tell.
was different. I'm sure it was more different for him because living in such a really small town. And then when you went to basic, you got introduced to people from all over, everywhere, and you learned a lot of reasons why people had the ideas that they had.
See, we was in
Trying
the
to clean
old,
it up as nice as I can make it.
I
he
appreciate
probably
it.
had some decent barracks. We had the old open bay barracks when I went,
Oh,
Woodbridge,
really?
yeah.
Well, they were open bay also, but at least we had air conditioning.
Well, we didn't have air conditioning. This is July and August in San
Oh.
Antonio, Texas.
Oh, I bet it
Oh,
was
it was
sweaty.
hot.
Oh,
Yeah, I passed out a time or two from the heat.
I can
yeah.
understand why. I hate heat.
Yeah, I do too, really, but I was in Florida so long. But
So, did you always want to be in the military, or you were going to college?
well, I was
for
trying
it?
to beat the draft,
Yeah, right.
and my
right.
draft notice came while I was in basic training.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Korean War was still on when I went in, which they stopped fighting shortly afterwards. But I got my draft notice while I was in basic
Really?
training.
Really.
But
What about you? Did you always want to be in the military?
Not always wanted to be, but I woke up halfway through my senior year and I was working for Publix, it's a big grocery store chain in Florida. And I knew I didn't want to do that all my
Right.
life.
Yeah.
And I was going to be graduating in a few months, and that meant basically getting out of there and going and having a real job and everything. And I thought about the deal that they were going to feed me, clothe me, give me a place to stay, and a paycheck. It wasn't much a paycheck because I was making $12 an hour when I went in to make $500 a month. It didn't make a whole lot of money sense
Yeah.
short term, but what I learned from being in the military and the doors that opened after I got out of the military, it was well worth them 4 years of not getting paid what you were worth.
So how long were you in the military for?
just 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, and
4 years.
Yeah.
and my several uncles, father, second cousins and stuff like that had done the military, and my future father-in-law, he was retired Air Force, and so it was one of them things that
Right.
it wasn't a bad gig. And
Yeah.
looking back, if things would have worked out different with promotions and stuff, I'd have probably stayed a lot longer. But
Right.
it just,
I went in for the money, $65 a month.
Yeah.
But
Well.
my cousin and I enlisted together.
Oh, okay.
But out of basic, he went to radio school in Illinois, and I went to Wichita Falls to engine school.
Yeah.
He went to Japan, and I went to Florida, and
Yeah.
we never was together again.
Oh. So did all the your family being in the military, people you knew, influence you to go into the military?
I think it did. I
Yeah.
think it was one of them some subconscious
Right. Yeah.
things that it was
makes sense.
the right thing to do.
I had an uncle that was in the Army Air Force,
Really?
Yeah.
So did that influence?
World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
So bunch of
and-
family military.
yeah,
Our,
a little bit, yeah.
our second
My dad
cousin-
was deferred because he lived on the farm during
Oh,
World War
yeah,
II.
yeah,
So he
yeah.
was deferred, he
Right.
didn't have to go.
and our second cousin was a full bird colonel in the Marines, and summer before my senior year, we had a family reunion like deal, and he pulled me to the side and gave me the enlistment speech. But he told me not to go into the Army or the Marines,
Oh, okay.
because all you learn is how to kill people.
No.
He says go in the Air Force or the Navy so you can learn something.
But-
So when I went,
The Army.
yeah, and then he looked me up and wanted to know why. And I had to do some quick explaining, but it was a financial thing. The Army gave me the best deal.
That makes sense.
Air Force was just gonna let me, I could say I was in the Air Force and then I wasn't going in the Navy because I didn't want to have no parts of being on a boat for
Oh, yeah.
years.
See, I went to engine school. Well,
Uh-huh.
the honor graduate in the class, for the class, got promoted supposedly. Well, I was the honor graduate, but the runner-up in the class got it because he'd been in the service 30 days longer than me.
Oh, man.
So then we ended up, him and I got sent to the same base.
Oh.
While I was checking into the orderly room, oh, you can type. We got to have somebody typing in the orderly room.
Oh.
So they stuck me in the orderly room typing secret clearances for 10 months I worked in the Army before I could get out on the flight line where I could get promoted. So I ended up working for this guy, you know.
So
But
what,
anyway,
what was your MOS? Your
mine was engine specialist.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So what about you?
Mine was 63 Hotel Whiskey, which was wheeled and tracked vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Mechanic on them.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting,
Yeah.
because the recruiter said I'd be working on pickups and Jeeps and staff cars.
Huh.
The first truck I worked on was a 20-ton pet that had 4 sticks sticking out of the floor, and I had to put a clutch in it, and I told them if they could show me how to drive it in, I'd figure out how to get the transmission and do the clutch job, but the rest of it was, but I picked it up real quick, because, you know, it's just common sense. And
Not the same way with me. I went to school on R2800 engines, which is 2 rows of cylinders.
Okay. Yeah.
But I ended up on B-17s, the old World War II bomber, only had 1 row of cylinders.
Oh, so it was.
But that's what we
yeah.
had as drones.
Okay.
This is real first of the drone things, you know. And we had F-80 jet drones also part of the squadron. I wasn't in the jet part, but they threw 3 of them to the atomic bomb blast in Yucca Flats. But then we got sent down to Patrick, going out to the Cape. This is 1955, 56. There was 2 buildings and a runway at Cape Canaveral. That's all there was.
Oh.
You had to carry your own water and food and everything out there.
yeah, the VAB, the big building with the American flag on the side of it. By the way, the American flag on the side of that building is the same size as a football.
Really?
Yeah, that's a big building.
Yeah.
I've been in it. I've been in that building. I've been on the launch pads.
Interesting.
About a third of my friends worked at the Space Center.
Yeah, a lot
Really?
of mine did too, yeah. I've seen the shuttle blow up. I've
Did
seen
you?
a lot of missiles blow up, but,
Yeah.
I was just getting off work that morning. I worked midnight shift for 23
Okay.
years, had the whole base to myself, doing air conditioning. And I was just getting off work that morning when it went up. And, yeah,
I came home from lunch and was getting out of my truck and looked, and it blew everywhere.
yeah, pieces went everywhere.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of missiles, the old Titans and up doors, and the Atlas is all blowing up about every time they'd send
The
one up.
Saturns, when they'd go up, they'd shake
Yeah,
the windows in the house, and when they went up at night, it was like the sun came on.
Yeah.
It was so bright.
and we was, about 20 miles of road to the launch pad.
Oh,
At the
wow.
base
Yeah.
you were.
Yeah.
At home, it was about 35 miles.
And it'd shake the windows at our house when they
Really?
go up, yeah. By the time you heard it, they was going out of sight. What
Yeah.
you see is a vapor trail, but
It took that long for the noise to
Yeah.
follow.
Right.
the night of the big Saturn V shot, that's our biggest one.
It was.
It went up at midnight. I took movies of it going up. And it wasn't, a few minutes later, they called me and said the radar trailer was down with the runway. And I'm the only one there, with air
Yeah.
conditioning. So after about 3 attempts to cross the runway, they finally had an escort to take me out there. And it took me a while. I had broken oil lines and everything else, but I got it going fine. But they had 70 aircraft in the air, no radar.
My goodness.
Because all the big wheels from Washington fly down to watch the shots from the air.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a better view from up there.
That's one of the reasons Patrick Air Force
Yeah.
Base, which is not an Air Force base anymore, it's part of Space Force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it has one of the best golf courses on the East Coast of the United States, so that's the only reason that base stays, one of the
Oh.
only reasons that base stays
So
open.
that, the yacht club.
Yeah, the yacht club
Yacht-
and stuff,
yacht
but
base,
yeah.
The base is very small.
Uh-huh.
It's only about less than a quarter of a mile at the nearest place at the,
Oh, wow.
on the, it's all on the island,
Yeah.
So small, very
Yeah.
small.
Yeah. Yeah, the altitude at the runway is 3 feet.
Oh, wow. Different from here then.
Yeah.
You said you got drafted during, the Korean War.
I would have got, yeah.
You would have gotten, but you did you go into the Korean War? Was the
No, I
fighting
didn't go.
over?
They signed it to stop fighting during the month I was in basic.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I was
okay.
still in basic.
Yeah. So did you serve in any major conflicts?
I was in Florida. That was
Yeah.
where I
Did
fought
you
the mosquitoes.
Did you serve in any major?
I flew for when we had the Iran
Right.
deal,
Yeah.
because I was on rapid deployment force. So we never touched down in country.
Mhm.
So, nope. Uh, the one down in South America,
Oh, don't ask me to remember.
where the college kids were all at, basically. Anyhow, that and then I was in basically during the Cold War, and
Okay.
and I had to do 45 days on the Czech border.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And now that it's been almost 40 years, I can say that at that time we were getting shot at on a daily basis,
Really?
but we're never allowed to return fire.
Really?
Yeah. They would set up their guard towers and stuff. We'd set up ours, then they'd move, and it was just playing games, and they got to have more fun because they didn't care.
Yeah.
A few times I radioed in, asked to return fire, and got told no.
I'm
But,
sure that was very hard.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about serving in the military?
Being away from family,
Yeah.
especially when you're overseas, stateside it wasn't too bad because I was stationed about 300 miles away from home, so you were
Yeah.
only supposed to go, I forget how many miles was it?
25, I think.
I forget what it was, but I'd go that 300 and some miles and be home for the weekend. And but over there it was different. But I was very fortunate. The guy I was stationed with at my first duty station, I went to Germany, and within about 2 months, he processed into the same unit I was at over there. So we pretty much 4 years, and we still stay in contact. We don't talk every week, but we talk
Right.
3 or 4 times a year. And his son was born the day before my birthday, so that's
Wow.
so
I just had a friend of mine who was born on my birthday. His dad and I went through all 4 years of the Air Force, through
Really?
basic and everything.
Wow.
And his dad died a few years ago, but he just died, 2 weeks ago?
yeah.
He was born on my birthday.
Wow.
And
You may have mentioned it earlier, but where all were you stationed?
I went basic in Fort Jackson. I was stationed at Fort Stewart, and then I was stationed in Baumholder, Germany. I didn't go to AIT because they took my civilian schooling, and so I didn't have to go to military school.
Okay, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons my points to get promoted were way down low.
Oh.
And I knew it was going to take a while to get there, and I just decided to go back to the real world. And I was very blessed when I got back. I worked for about 9 months for an air conditioning contractor because I kind of learned that from my dad. And I got hired by the city of Melbourne, starting off running the gas pumps and changing tires, and I stayed there for 35 years and worked my way all the way up to the fleet manager superintendent position.
So where all were you stationed?
I took basic at Lackland Air Force Base
Okay.
in San Antonio. Went to Wichita Falls, Shepherd Air Force
Yeah,
Base.
yeah.
Then I went to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Then I went to Patrick.
Okay.
That was the
What was your favorite place you were stationed?
I guess down at Patrick.
Yeah.
But northern Florida was nice too.
Right.
I'm not crazy about the beach, but it's so pretty down Fort Walton
Yeah.
Beach,
Yeah.
Nice blue water in the Gulf,
Oh,
and
yeah.
white sand, and that's the worst sunburn I ever got in my life.
Oh,
Probably Germany.
Germany.
Now this was prior to the wall coming down.
Okay.
So it's a totally different place then. Our money was worth every one of our dollars was worth 2 of theirs. So you had a little bit better money rate on the German economy. The older people treated us like we were kings. People our own age treated us worse than anything else.
Well, it's like any base.
Yeah.
Around close to the base, the people don't like you. Because the GIs really,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
you get farther away, the people
Yeah.
like you.
Yeah.
But Germany, the food was great. Beer was good. But their society and the way they done things was really neat. Like I told my parents when I got home from there, if something ever happened here, that would be the country I'd go to.
Really?
But that was all prior
Right,
to
right.
the wall coming down.
Yeah, my wife and I was gonna go over there if he re-enlisted, stayed over there. But he didn't re-enlist, so we didn't get to go.
Oh. You mentioned the people around the base, not liking you. That must have been very hard. So what did you believe the hardest part to be in the military was? The hardest part of being in the military?
Being in the military?
Yeah.
Oh, in the early days, being away from the family,
Yeah.
until I got married about a year into the service. So, but the first year was kind of hard. Of course, you really didn't have time. They kept you pretty busy back then.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You didn't have time. And if you was acting kind of funny, they knew that something was wrong. You was
Yeah.
mentally,
Yeah.
so they'd get after you. But military is entirely different nowadays than it was then.
I'm sure.
Well, I had it made working midnights. I worked midnight 23 years. Well, I got to know everybody at the mess hall.
Oh, okay.
So
You
I'd go
don't
in there and
wanna
they
tell all
closed
this story.
down the serving line at midnight,
Uh-huh.
had midnight chow. The cook would give me all the fried chicken that was
Man,
left.
that's
And I'd take
nice.
it down to the shop and I'd have
Yeah.
what I wanted at bakery.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I had it made there. My birthdays, they'd have me a steak cooked up.
Wow.
And the baker, she'd have me a birthday cake.
Oh.
But I'd work on other things than the air conditioning.
Yeah,
fan.
yeah.
At night, I was the only one there.
Let me put this in a little bit more better perspective. The chow hall was run by a contractor. So he was fixing on other pieces of their equipment that they didn't have anyone to fix. So that's how they
Yeah.
were paying him
I
to
see,
do
I
his
see.
extra
Well,
work
there
on
wasn't
his.
nobody else at night. If their toaster broke down, they didn't
Yeah.
have another toaster. So I'd try to fix it, or if the deep fryer went out or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but the only other one on was a boiler man.
Yeah.
Boiler man and me, we had the whole base,
Wow.
so.
So I mentioned the hardest part. What was your favorite part about serving in the military?
With going to Europe, I went to Paris.
Yeah.
I was there for New Year's one year.
Oh wow.
Everywhere you're seeing with the Olympics right now, I've been there.
Wow.
That's kind of neat with telling my wife that, yeah, I was there and da-da-da-da. I went to 24 Hours Le Mans down there, and this is how small this earth is we live on. My next door neighbor had race cars all growing up. One of the other young guys that helped him on the race car, I ran into at the 24 Hours Le Mans.
Oh, wow.
I was walking by the pits and he recognized me and called me over there, so I got to hang out in the pits at 24 Hours Le Mans.
Wow.
Hawaiian Tropic was a suntan lotion that used to be really famous, and it's from Cocoa Beach. Well, his car, one of the Camaros they had there, was sponsored by them.
Oh.
So it was pretty neat seeing someone that you knew that far away. And same with, I was at an Air Force base one time, and a guy I played football with in high school. We ran into each other walking down the street.
Wow.
So if you ever get away from here, don't think you won't run into somebody that you don't know. And it's usually when you least expect it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that and just seeing the world and learning a lot of neat stuff gave me a better aspect and better.
I was on the track team at Eglin, throwing the shot put and discus. And we went to Fort Benning, Georgia. The Army guys put us up in the paratroopers barracks. Boy, they ragged us because we weren't near as neat as they were. They was out at 6 o'clock in the morning with full packs running, But I don't think we got a single point in the track meet. But things like that, I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I wanted to play football, but the RCO wouldn't let me go. Kind of shorthanded on the flight line.
And the Army they didn't have an Army post football team. All the Air Force places did, because the guy I ran into, he was playing for Ryan Mine's football team, so when I got back, I asked about that, but I played for the post softball team, so because of sports and stuff.
He played for me. I coached and managed Little League Baseball for 10 years. And he started out as my catcher. And he was short, stocky. Everybody called him Yogi for Yogi Bear, best baseball player.
Yeah.
That's all he was known by was Yogi.
Bear.
But he played for me except for his last year. When
Last 2 years.
the last 2 years, you got drafted over to another team. But then I helped on the midget football. He played midget football too. And they would go to Knoxville, Tennessee every year,
Oh, wow.
every other year. And Knoxville would come down there
Oh, wow.
one year, back and forth. And we'd put them up in our houses.
Yeah,
But I enjoyed that.
Right,
That's
yeah.
what-
Yeah, that's one thing I truly, by us moving to Florida, I was so blessed. The Lord looked out for me,
Yeah.
because if I'd have stayed in around Muskota, Kansas, I'd been in Leavenworth by now. Because there a lot of them places out there. There ain't nothing to do but
Yeah.
think of mischief to get
You know,
into.
farmer boys, they get in trouble trying to invent things to do.
Yeah.
Well, there was nothing in my little town. We did have a pool hall when I grew up. That was it. I was the same way in the college town where I went. There was only about 600 people in the town.
Yeah.
But we only had 90-some students at the junior college.
Oh, wow.
But all there was a pool hall.
Yeah. So not much.
But now,
It's a whole lot bigger than that
now they've got 1,200 in class, I think, there.
Oh.
See, it's that one building.
Yeah. Oh.
And the offices and classrooms all in this one building. Well, they had an old original hall was an Indian mission back in early days. So now they've got 1,200 on campus. They've got a
I don't know, a
gymnasium
couple of
and
your
a
nieces went to
cafeteria
school there.
and a library and housing.
Wow.
They had all.
What's
said
the
something.
college name?
That was Highland Junior College.
Highland Junior.
And
Okay.
then
Now
you
it's
have
Highland Community College.
Saint
Oh,
Ben,
okay.
Saint Benedictine, what is it?
St. Benedict's is in Atchison, yeah.
The one where the kicker for the Chiefs got in trouble?
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that
That's-
was a county seat for,
It's a Catholic college, and my cousin's boy, he graduated from there. He played on their baseball team.
Wow. Like career after the military. What did you do for careers?
Shortly worked in the AC construction business.
Right. Yeah.
Then I started off as a mechanic and worked my way for the city of Melbourne for
Yeah.
35 years, and it was very beneficial. I was able to retire at 55,
Oh.
making a decent retirement by moving here to, I live in West Plains. The cost of living in West Plains is about 50% of what it is in Florida.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it was like I didn't take a pay
Right.
cut.
Yeah.
So that was,
when I retired, I was making $12 an hour when I retired after 30 years.
Oh. Yeah.
and
Now, my retirement ain't too big.
Yeah.
My social security means I draw a retirement check. They take 2/3 of it.
Oh. Yeah.
So I only draw $142 a month,
Social
social
Security.
security.
Yeah.
Because see, all the years I worked civil service, I didn't pay into social security.
Oh.
So all I had was what I paid in before I went to work there.
Yeah.
And I had my own business for about 4 years.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I tried to start it in Kansas.
What was
Air
it?
conditioning, and
Oh, okay.
I didn't know furnaces and stuff like that, so summer was the only thing I had, except for milk coolers in the winter in
Okay,
grocery
yeah.
stores. That's about all I had. So I went back to Florida. I got my old job back 3 times.
Really?
Same place.
What's your favorite military memories?
just camaraderie between
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just,
you, because of what you do in the military, and you might work as a mechanic right now, but you're always a soldier.
Yeah.
So that guy working next to you, you got to put your life in his hands. And
I enjoyed
that's,
flying. I didn't get to fly very often, but we flew one time from Patrick to the Wichita, Kansas, in the old B-17.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite a flight, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't very comfortable flying.
Oh, yeah.
And to get from the back of the plane to the front,
Uh-huh.
you had to go through the bomb bay.
Okay.
And you had a I-beam about this wide,
Oh, yeah.
and the bomb racks was on each side.
Uh-huh.
Well, you had to walk this I-beam to get to the front.
Oh.
And sometimes we'd fly with the bomb bay doors open,
Oh goodness.
and you'd have to walk through there looking down.
Yeah.
No. No, that ain't happening.
Sitting up in that glass nose coming in for a landing
Yeah.
gives you a thrill.
Oh yeah, I'm
That
sure.
ground's coming right up
Yeah.
at you.
Oh.
But I enjoyed flying. I'd go up once in a while with the flight.
Yeah.
Doing air conditioning, we had a lot of dignitaries come through. I don't know whether you heard of the Professor von Braun. He helped develop the V-2 rocket for Germany.
Yeah.
He was there,
Really.
and I worked on his house air conditioning.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't get to see him, but I talked to his wife.
Interesting.
But every once in a while, I watched the Discovery Channel,
Uh huh.
and here's a picture of him standing right by Hitler. You know,
Yeah.
in some of the movies, yeah.
Man.
But he helped develop our missiles after
Yeah.
World War II.
So you worked on his air conditioning? you
I
said?
worked on his house air conditioning,
Wow.
yeah. Because I worked in housing maintenance.
Yeah.
For a contractor for a
Uh-huh.
while before I got civil service. But then I got to sit in the U-2, the
Uh-huh.
old spy plane.
Right.
They were flying over Cuba out of our base, and I was putting air conditioner in their oxygen breathing room. The pilot had to breathe oxygen for a certain length of time before he could go out and get in the plane.
Yeah.
And I got in good with the crew, and they let me sit in the cockpit
Wow.
of U-2. So I've had a pretty interesting life.
Yeah.
I have. I've seen a lot of history being made from the early missiles, or the early radio control till now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen it. We just had two-way little motors that run throttles on the airplane. That was about the extent of our electronics, you know. And we had to have a chase plane behind them, behind the drone,
Okay.
because the radio equipment wouldn't go very far.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
now,
Kate,
or you can be sitting in Texas and
Yeah.
running one in Iran.
yeah, we used to take the plane out, they would, and set the controls to circle out over the ocean.
Uh huh.
Then the mothership would come back, and then they could fire the missile. And if the missile didn't go or whatever, then they'd have to go back out and find it
Oh
and bring
goodness.
it back.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
almost hit it a time or two in the cloud bank, you know, because you didn't have
They were
radar.
painted orange with black.
Yeah, they were, we call
stripes
them
around.
bumblebees. There was orange and black stripes around the drone.
Oh wow.
And the motherships were red,
Wow.
yeah.
You've already mentioned some of, you said you had an interesting life. You've already mentioned some of the events, but what's some more like significant, political events or just events you would have said happened in your lifetime?
With working for the city, anytime a president would come visit the area, I would be part of the security team, making sure we'd park dump trucks in different places, blocking airport roadways and stuff like that. Have to go all the way around anywhere the motorcade was going and weld the manhole covers so you couldn't get into them to put anything.
Yeah.
So several presidents came while I was working there, and we didn't have anyone shoot off of a roof at anybody.
We
So-
had them come into and fly into the base there. I didn't see
Really?
a lot of them. I've seen several of the astronauts.
Did you?
I didn't know them personally or anything like
Right.
that. But, yeah, you'd see a dignitary, but working nights, I'd miss out on seeing a lot of them.
Oh yeah, probably so.
Because
Yeah.
I got off at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But we had a few come
So
in,
you came in contact probably
Yeah,
with a lot of
seen them around.
famous people. Yeah.
But, yeah, I had an interesting life. I got to see a lot of this country. When I lived down there, we'd take off. My cousin he used to work for the IRS in Washington D.C. Well, we went up there to stay with him a week, and we went to the White House and the,
Wow. Yeah.
all that,
Right, yeah.
the Washington Monument. The main thing that I got out of that was changing the guard at the cemetery.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
I've only seen videos of
Oh,
it.
yeah, it's really impressive. And it was so hot that day. How that guy stood in that little shack, I don't know.
And them guys, if you make that crew, one of the things is you cannot ever cuss.
Yeah.
It don't matter from that day forward. Guy he worked with, his son was the same age as me. He ended up being a guard there. And
Yeah.
if you knew this kid before he became the guard, you would have never thought that there was no way, no how that Cooper's boy
Yeah,
could have done
Sergeant
that.
Cooper was staff sergeant. He run the radio most of the time, give me calls if I had calls, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I got to see a lot of Washington DC, but it was so hot, man.
Yeah.
But then my wife and I took another trip, and we went out west. A friend of mine lived in Seattle,
Mhm.
so we went out up through Montana, Yellowstone,
Yeah.
went into Seattle, went up to Space Needle, and ended up down in Las Vegas. I didn't like Las Vegas. We got out of there the same day I went in. My cousin lived in Prescott, Arizona.
Yeah.
He was the one that he said that told him to join the Navy.
The Navy, yeah.
Colonel
He was teaching at the flying college here at Prescott. Because he done got out. He'd had 33 years
Oh, wow. Yeah.
in the Marines. But now, this year, he's not going to teach school. It got too old.
Oh.
he's 92 years old.
92?
92, yeah.
Wow.
And he still goes down in the Grand Canyon,
Backpacks in.
backpacks in, camps overnight, packs back out.
Wow.
6 miles down, 7 miles back out.
Man. That's
Yeah, 92, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my cousin up in Washington DC is 91.
Really?
He's a social worker. He goes out 6 days a week visiting the old people.
Really?
What I find is how, if you're 92 years old, how are you going to visit old people?
Yeah, well, I'm not doing much. I'm only 90, but I'm the young one.
So you mentioned your wife. What was her name?
Alma,
Elma.
yeah, she passed away 6 years ago.
And do you have any other children?
No,
No.
one was enough.
Did you ever marry?
Yeah,
What your wife's name?
Pamela.
Pamela.
I've got a stepson who's today turned
30,
48.
46, wasn't it?
No, 48.
48 today.
And I've got a daughter that's 36 who's pregnant. Hopefully she has our first grandson.
Oh.
She's
Yeah.
lost one before, so
Well, she's really lost two,
well, yeah, but
really lost two. So we're keeping close tabs on her.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's 7 months now, so.
For our 50th anniversary, my wife and I he was gonna come up. Well,
We were on our way.
called, he was in the hospital in Atlanta, Georgia with a heart attack. So we spent our 50th anniversary in Atlanta.
Oh.
It's our 25th.
Mhm.
That's kind of weird how it
Yeah,
worked out
yeah.
that way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The gold and silver.
Yeah.
Did any of your children follow in your footsteps and join the military? No.
No, and that's partially my fault. It's like my son,
Mhm.
he couldn't tell you which screwdriver's which because I was third generation mechanic.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to break it and I wanted him to go to school and become
Right.
something better now.
Yeah.
Now my daughter, I can send her the toolbox and she usually brings me back what I want.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because when her mom was carrying her, we'd read to her, but also I would tell her screwdriver types and wrench sizes and stuff like that. And there is something to that because I don't know how many thousands of dollars I spent in books, but that and she was in the gifted program and everything. So
Well, she had a book published.
yeah,
Oh, did she?
she's already had 1 or 2 books published,
Wow.
children's
Yes, books,
stories.
Cool.
He was back big in racing. He was going to Daytona all the time. And he got in with Dale Earnhardt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in his pits the day he died.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my Superman.
Yeah.
And
Somebody you looked up to?
yeah, and that, like I said, being where I grew up in Florida, I was very blessed. With the whole time I worked for the city, I also owned my own body shop.
Oh, wow.
And early on, when they first started with the jet skis,
Mhm.
a friend of mine, they had a rental company, and they broke some of them, and I was fixing them. Then I got in with the local dealer and was fixing theirs. Then Sea-Doo found out about it, so I done some R&D work with them. And then we were taking boats up to Jeff Gordon, Earnhardt, and all of them, so I got to meet a
Oh,
bunch of the
wow,
racers.
yeah.
So the guy that owned the dealership, he had bought a Dale Earnhardt, one of his old race cars, and had me putting it back together,
Oh,
making
wow.
it into a driving car. And we got to know some of the guys in the shop, so when they would have the show car set up and stuff like that, I knew most of the guys, so
Wow.
my daughter thought it was really neat when
Yeah.
walk up there and they knew her dad's name and stuff. And
So you guys both met some, or came in contact with
Yeah.
some
yeah,
famous
yeah,
people.
it was, you know, at the time, it was neat and everything, but when you get to be, I'm like 63 years old now, you look back at what you've done and how neat it was.
I was gonna say,
Mark
I've
Martin.
had a blessed life. I've seen a lot of history. You know, starting at the drones and how it progressed, and you know, I've seen a lot.
So,
The early missiles, you know.
yeah,
Now, you take that Saturn V missile, nobody knows how big that is really.
really?
The first stage, they've got one laying out there for display, and they take two of them. The first stage has 5 engine exhausts. The
Oh, wow.
cones,
Uh-huh.
each cone is 12 feet across.
Oh, goodness. So it is way
It's
bigger than,
big.
yeah, anybody would think.
It makes a Greyhound bus sitting there look like a toy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that's just the first stage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my goodness. So do you have any advice for anybody joining the military or considering
Do it.
joining?
Do it, yeah. I think
Yeah.
every boy, and probably women, ought to be in the
Nowadays,
military.
yes. Get you over from being mama's boy or daddy's girl.
Right.
It makes you grow up. You learn a lot of life lessons. Not only that, you can learn a good career, and being a veteran opens a lot of doors for you.
So say, and discipline.
Yeah.
Young people today need the discipline.
They don't get the same amount of discipline that we got. And I know when I went was not as hard as ones that went through when my dad did.
You know,
I-
military not as strict as it used to be.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
All kids ought to go in the military.
Yeah,
When it's not a war, you know,
Right, yeah.
just be in the military.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody.
And what you probably don't know is 1% of the American population is all that's ever been into military
Really?
at any one time.
wow. So do you feel like our country does a good job honoring veterans, or how do you think they could do better?
They're doing better now than they ever have.
The guys that I have breakfast with every morning about 6 o'clock down at the restaurant, about half of them are military.
Right,
And last year, I think there was 15 people in the audience on Memorial Day, memorial at the cemetery.
right,
And I told them, I said, town this size, how many people there is, 15 people show up to honor their veterans. They don't show me much.
Well,
And I can't get any of them to join the lodge.
in a lot of their defense, I went in right after Vietnam. I was very beginning of the volunteer army. I went and drafted. As a matter of fact, I got a letter while I was in wanting to know why I hadn't registered for the draft.
yeah,
So you know the government doesn't talk to each other. But when I flew back to get married, I flew in uniform commercial airlines, and when I came through New York, I had people spit at me, veer away from me like I had the plague and everything else like that. So when I got home out of the military, no one said nothing. I'd been working for the city for over 20 years when they decided to start. We didn't even have Veterans Day off working for
wow,
them. They took it for the day after Thanksgiving.
I'll say that when I was in, when I come home and leave, everybody treated you like
Yeah. But
nice.
Yeah.
Vietnam was such a negative time. You know, I was called a baby killer and all the same stuff them guys were. So I know what them guys went through.
right.
And so after that, I never wore my military uniform when I traveled. It was just like,
I'm sorry for that, that's,
well, it's not your fault. It's the hippies at the time. But anyhow, it's just, you know, then it took Desert Storm
yeah,
before our country decided that, you know, soldiers and veterans were worth something. I've been thanked more since then than I'd ever been thanked.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
We're
but
just now beginning to think, think of veterans now.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, especially the guys, and I didn't sign up for my disability until I was retired.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I was brought up, I didn't want to be in front of them, kids that were coming blown up and stuff. I had pretty good insurance when I was working, so I didn't want to get in their way of them getting help.
Yeah.
And so, and it takes you, the injuries that you had and stuff like that, it's taken me 40 years to get where I'm finally getting taken care of for them.
Oh, yeah.
I never
So-
did join the VA. I should have, but I didn't.
Because there's too much paperwork. And there is, but it's getting a lot better.
Well, when I first moved up here, I thought about it. They had a pile of paperwork back then. I said, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
story.